What's up, everybody? I am back and I am in between grows. I just got done doing the harvest of the 2 reservoirs, 1 grow, and I am cleaning and resetting the room for my next run because I've got plants eagerly awaiting being moved over into their deep water culture buckets for the next run. If you want to watch any of my my grows or my grow video series, go check out my playlists and you'll be able to watch anything there. But today's video, usually this room is filled up with huge plants and they steal the show. But now that they're not in here, you can see the system, and I can do videos on deep water culture systems and the principles of deep water culture, which is what today's video is on. The 6 keys to consistent success in deep water culture. These are going to be pretty simple, straightforward, and they're pretty much all the things you need to concentrate on top of your environment. None of this is about the environment, it's only about the medium. So you're still gonna have to take care of other things like VDP, CO2, airflow, DLI. You still gotta do all those other things that you have to do with any grow. These keys are strictly dealing with deep water culture and the medium, so, which is water. So, and if you guys are looking at this RDWC system here and you want to know more about it, you can also go check out my builds playlist and take a look at how I built this, as well as how I designed the room and how everything is the way it is in here, or why. And if you haven't yet, please like, comment, subscribe, and that'll help me out a lot. But either way, let's get into why, or let's get into the 6 keys of deep water culture. Right now everything looks a little gnarly in here, but at least I have something to point at and show what I'm talking about with the first key. So the first 3 keys are going to be along the same lines, which is root health. The first key to root health is putting air in the water. So I have, in this bin, I've got water spraying down in there, agitating the surface. That's good for oxygen exchange with the water. And I also have 4 air stones in each bin. I have 4 air stones. So putting air in the water is the first key. And this is, you know, all these keys I'm going to say are all absolutely necessary, and you definitely need to do them. And there's always going to be some guy that says, I've been growing 70 years and I don't use air stones, I just use the waterfall and the bucket method and it does fine. So there's always going to be some guy like that out there. But if you want consistent success and you want it to not be a fluke in deep water culture, you want to make sure you are honed in on all these parameters I'm about to talk about. And like I said, the first one is oxygenating the water. I use these big air stones, which I probably have to replace, but I use 4 of these big Coke can type air stones. And I have 1 air pump, 1 huge air pump for each 2 sites. So 1 on that side and 1 on this side. But like I said, aerating the water is the #1 key. You need oxygen to your roots. The one thing that makes deep water culture actually possible is keeping your water extra aerated. When people grow in soil or other mediums, overwatering your plants is a huge problem, because when you overwater your plants in soil, the roots suffocate and they die. So this is overwatered here for sure. You're in water. So if you're going to be in water, you have to make sure there's sufficient or excess oxygen for the roots to have. And that's, you know, it can't be any clearer why this is the #1 thing you need to do, is oxygenate your water. So that's the #1 key. Bubbles, air stones, oxygenating your water. However you achieve the bubbles or oxygenating your water it will work fine, but air stones is obviously the most reasonable, easy way to do it with an air pump. So that's the #1 key, which leads me straight into the #2 key, which is you can't feel it. You can see the bubbles, you can't feel the temperature. Right now, this water is chilly, so it's 68 degrees water. The number 2 key is temperature. And I've got my system hooked up to a chiller here, which I run it through constantly. Anytime this pump is on, anytime the system is running, the water is going through the chiller to keep it at 68 degrees for this system. The reason this is so important is along the same lines with oxygenating the water. Chilling the water makes oxygen more available in the water. So as water temperatures rise, oxygen isn't able to stay in a solution kind of in the water as well as when it's cold. So not having cool temperatures, not having enough oxygen in the water leads to big problems. And the main problem is it creates an anaerobic environment, which means no oxygen. So in an anaerobic environment, bad things happen. Anaerobic bacteria start growing, and those are the things that will kill your roots, cause just root rot, Bacterium, all kinds of problems. Anaerobic environment is bad in almost any kind of growing, it's bad in a lot of things actually. But the point is, you want an aerobic environment where oxygen is, and generally, and it's even like in your digestive, there's all kinds of things where anaerobic environments are bad, but aerobic environment is better, and aerobic bacteria is better. So that's the number 2 key, is keep it cool along the same lines as the first key, so you can keep oxygen in the water, an aerobic environment, roots can get oxygen nutrients they need. Things work out much better this way. And like I said before on the bubbles, there's always some guy who says, I've been growing 70 years and I don't use a chiller. I grow in 80-degree water and everything works fine. Well, there may be guys out there that grow in 80-degree water or whatever, do stupid stuff, but the point is, if you want the highest chance of success, consistent success, you want chilled water at least below 72 degrees. I keep it at 68 because I think that's optimal, but you want your water chilled. And however you achieve that goal, you might not necessarily have to have a chiller if you live somewhere cool enough, or you bury your reservoir or whatever. However you achieve the goal of chilled water to keep it more oxygenated and keep it an aerobic environment, that's what you need to do. That's the number 2 key. Which leads me into the number 3 key for deep water culture, which is having either a sterile or a beneficial bacteria system. So those are the 2 ways you can run your water for your reservoir: sterile or beneficial bacteria. I run a beneficial bacteria system, which means I add a supplement which promotes like a beneficial bacteria to grow in the water to basically out-colonize the bad things. So I use HydroGuard. There's a bunch of different, not a bunch, but there's a few different brands, Orca, a couple others. There's a few different brands of beneficial bacteria you can put in your reservoir to maintain a healthy bacterial population and basically outpopulate anything bad. So that's the whole premise of the beneficial bacteria system. And the sterile system is along the same lines, where you sterilize it and don't let anything grow in there, and that keeps the anaerobic bad bacteria out as well. So either way you want to go, both work fine. I use beneficial bacteria, but the point is, you want to go one of these 2 ways to keep the bad bacteria out of your system, so it keeps away root rot. The same things with the anaerobic environment creates. The adding the additive or keeping it sterile does the same thing. So those are the first 3 keys, and they're all centered around root health, water aeration, and basically oxygenation of the water to allow intake of nutrients and water in the plants easy. So first 3 keys down. Now we're going to go on to number 4 key, which is slightly divergent from these other 3, which are very similar and all on the same page. The 4th key is maintaining a proper pH. So this is the one. Once you've got your system set up right, you shouldn't have to look back and worry about oxygenation or temperature And once you mix your nutrients, you shouldn't have to worry about beneficial or sterile system. The fourth key is pH. Well, this is way off because it's been sitting here not doing anything for a while, but pH is the number one most important factor you need to keep your eyes on during a grow. They have pH meters and pH dosers and things like that, which will maintain this number for you. I do it manually, kind of to see what's going on. But pH is the number one, after obviously the basic air oxygenation type situation, oxygenation type keys. pH is the most important key because this is the number you need to maintain in your reservoir, which allows the nutrients to be taken into the plant at the right times. So for deep water culture, most hydroponics, you want it to be between 5.5 and 6.5. And you can look online and you'll find charts which show what nutrients are consumed by the plants at what pH ranges. And the majority of them, almost all of them that you need, are between 5.5 and 6.5. And generally, for veg, where they're taking more nitrogen and things like that, you want to be on the lower side, so between like 5.7 and 6.0 for veg. And then once you move into flower, you want to be on the higher side when you're picking in all the, the P and K type later nutrients. You want to be somewhere between 6 and 6.3. But either way, the point is pH is the number one parameter that you need to keep an eye on. Watch that one like a hawk, because as soon as you see things happening bad to your plants, 9 times out of 10 is a pH problem. Well, a pH lockout where they're not getting the nutrients they need because your pH is way off. And of those 9 times out of 10, half the time is because your pH meter isn't calibrated. So either way, that is the fourth key, is pH, keeping that parameter in check and in the right zone. Or was that fourth? Sorry, that's the third key. Third key, pH. No, that was the fourth key. Fourth key. Okay, so far we got bubbles, temperature, sterile or beneficial system, and pH is number 4. So, like I said, the number one number to keep your eye on, pH. Gotta have it in the right spot. If you don't, problems happen fast. The number 5 key is another parameter of the water, and that is parts per million of your water. So this isn't as important as all the rest of them up till now, but it is an important thing to keep your eye on so you can know what's happening in your water. So in veg, I go parts per million between, starting out around 200 something, I get up to around 700 or 800 and at the end of veg. And in flower, I go somewhere between 700 to about 1200, depending on what stage of flower and what stage of veg we're in. Those are the ranges I run my parts per million. But the reason this parameter is important is because it'll show you what's happening with your plants. If your plants aren't eating, if the parts per million are going up as your plants drink the water, that means they're not taking nutrients out of the water. So that means you have some kind of problem. Like my last run, when I chopped off the roots before I moved them into the, before I moved the plants into this system, the parts per million were going up because the roots weren't working very well after I chopped them off. The parts per million were going up, which means the plants weren't drinking nutrients. They were drinking a little bit of water, but barely any nutrients. And it was basically because I chopped the plants, but it was showing me what was going on. So I was just adding RODI water because I was waiting for those roots to kind of start cranking again. But the point is, if your parts per million are going up, that means your plants are drinking more water than nutrients, and you need to lower your solution or just add RODI water. If your parts per million are falling, then your plants are drinking more nutrients than they are water, and you probably need to increase the power of your solution. Up the parts per million of the solution you're adding to your grow here. But either way, like I said, that's the key. Number 5 is monitoring the parts per million of your solution, which you can get away, if you do enough water changes where you don't care about that, you can get away with not monitoring that. You just change your water every week or whatever, like a lot of guys do. I don't do that. I got a big system with 80 gallons. I'm not going to change 80 gallons worth of nutrient solution every week. I rarely change nutrient solution. I just keep an eye on it and adjust it accordingly, which people aren't going to like that, but that's what I do. and it works out for me, and it's just cheaper and easier and just works out all around. I'd much rather be able to tweak something than just blindly change things every week because I don't think I can handle it. But either way, that's how I do it. Parts per million, key number 5. And key number 6 is more of a general key. So all the keys up to this point have been about the water, maintaining the water for the plants. Every key up until this point has been all about water parameters. The first 5. The number 6 key is more of a general key to the whole system of running DWC. When you're growing plants in other mediums like coco coir, soil, whatever, you're growing a plant in a pot. You can go over here, you can pick up your pot, move it over there, pick up that pot, move over there, do whatever you want with the pot. When you're dealing with your plants and you're moving your pots, you can do whatever you want with them. But when you're in DWC or RDWC, you are stuck in this spot. And if you have a problem with your containers or your system, it's a big problem. So key number 6 to growing in deep water culture successfully is to have a robust system and have it be accessible. So a robust system that's accessible, as well as having a nice infrastructure around your plants once they grow big. So like I was saying, when it comes to the robust part, it means building a system that's not going to break. And if it does, the point is you don't want, in the middle of a grow, if you have a leak or some kind of malfunction or clogged up roots somewhere, you've got a big problem. And if you've invested months into this grow and you have this huge problem, what are you going to do? It's one of those nightmare scenarios you don't want to deal with. So building your system robust, and when I say robust, I mean basically tough and in big pipes, so you don't have, root clogging your pipes, especially for RDWC, is one of the big factors. And obviously leaks are the biggest factor as far as robust. But there's other things that can happen. Anything can happen as far as leaks, but clogging with the roots and leaks are the 2 major problems you can have if you don't build a robust system. And now that we talked about robust, we're going to talk about accessible and easy to deal with. So when you're growing in just deep water culture, it's a little bit easier to build a robust, and accessible system. So in deep water culture, I can just build one of these pots, throw the wires in it, and just recirculate water in here and just have it go off the chiller and back in, whatever. And it's not that big of a deal. And then if something bad happened, I could take the lid off and then just have a spare pot, put the lid back on that pot, and I could have, just replace it in basically the same thing, and no problem. Deep water culture is just a single bucket deep water culture is a little bit simpler and less to worry about as far as catastrophic failures than the RDWC system, which is just a lot of points of failure. But the accessibility part of it is a little bit easier when it comes to RDWC. So in deep water culture, you're going to have an easy way probably to drain or refill your pots. You're going to have to figure out a way to do that. There's a lot of simple ways to do it, and there's a lot of examples online of how to do it. But it's always still kind of a pain to refill and change water and things like that with a single bucket. Accessibility is basically one of my favorite things about RDWC is that I can come in here and just plug in a hose over here to do water changes and then put this hose back in the top and fill it back up. So accessibility is something that's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to growing deep water culture. Because like I said, you can't just grab a pot and move it around, put it somewhere else, change places with a pot, whatever. Once you're in this pot, in this deep water culture bucket here, you're stuck in that spot with your plants for the duration of the grow. So like I said, robust and accessible is the number 6 key to success in RDWC, or DWC, excuse me, deep water culture. But along with robust and accessible, you also need to build an infrastructure to grow in deep water culture. Because, like I said, you're not going to be able to move it, but also these plants are going to get big. These plants are going to get bigger than what you're used to growing in soil or cocoa or anything like that. So you're gonna have some way to support it. In my room, I built this huge thing to support everything. I can put scrog nets and trellises, whatever, wherever I want them. But the point is, you need to build some kind of infrastructure around deep water culture to support your plants. A lot of guys just do single buckets and they do a like a tomato cage or something, which will hold the plants up and support everything. But regardless of how you do it, you need to allow for a way to support your plants and be able to do water changes and whatever else you might need to do with the system. So it's a lot of planning goes into deep water culture that doesn't go into other kinds of grows. So hopefully you guys got something out of this video. I think I covered the 6 major keys to growing in deep water culture that are specific to this kind of growing. There's one bonus key to growing in 6 water culture. It's more of a just you need to prepare for it, because when you grow in deep water culture, the last thing I'm going to mention about the key to success is you need to have a way to keep your relative humidity in your room in check. This is one of just more of an environmental type thing, but it's kind of a little more emphasis on it when you're growing in deep water culture, because the plants suck in a lot more water. There's a lot more water splashing around. There's a lot more vapor in the air, and the plants blast out a lot more air, or a lot more water into the air. So you're going to need a way to keep your relative humidity in check. So probably a huge dehumidifier is one of those things you're going to need if you're going to grow any volume of deep water culture, because it's not like growing in soil or anything else. It's going to be very, very humid if you grow a lot of deep water culture plants. But anyway, that's the bonus key. We'll call it key number 6+. But either way, just to have a quick rundown of all these keys again. First one was oxygenate the water with air stones, or however you get oxygen in the water. You got to put a lot of bubbles in there. Number 2, temperature. You want to keep the temperature cool enough, and optimal is 68 degrees, but you want to keep your temperature cool so that the water stays oxygenated easier and the roots are able to take in more oxygen. 3, you need to keep a beneficial or a sterile system, which prevents anaerobic bacteria, bad bacteria, things like that from getting into your reservoir and ruining your roots. 4, pH. You got to keep your pH in check in the right range, or your plants will not be able to intake the nutrients they need. 5 is the parts per million of your water. It's a great thing to keep an eye on. It tells you what the plants are doing, and it's what you need to kind of maintain to make sure you're giving them what they need when they need it, and keeping your solution from getting way out of whack one way or the other. And number 6, robustness and accessibility are obviously paramount, especially when it comes to building RDWC and things like that. But those are the 6 keys. Like I said before, I hope you guys got some out of this video. It's pretty long for me to sit here and talk about things, but I appreciate it if you guys watched this far. And if you haven't yet, please like, comment, subscribe. And if you want, like I said before, if you want to take a look at how I built this system, why I built it, the room, everything I have in here, I've got a builds playlist in my videos here. So just go to my playlist, click on builds, you see everything I've built, why I built it, how I built it. And basically kind of those considerations are addressed in most of my build videos of how I'm going to get it cold, how I'm going to keep it cold, the water, the air, things like that. So if you haven't yet like, comment, subscribe, please do those things. If you watched this far, I appreciate you. If you want to take a look at some other videos, please do that. And I will catch you guys on the next video. I'm about to start the next run. As soon as I get this thing cleaned out, I'm going to start the next run with those plants over there that are begging to be put in this system. And we'll start cranking again. But that's it for this one. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.